So today we're going to take a short look at about a 30-minute yin yoga practice. And for all of you who have practiced with me, you know that I have a very yin side. I spend a lot of time doing vinyasa flow, and I absolutely love vinyasa flow and the heat and the sweat and the cardio of it. But I also really love to bring it a few steps down, soften it up a little bit, and get deeper into things other than just the muscles. Yin looks to get into the connective tissue. So for me, that's a really great flexibility opening. So starting with a blanket underneath, I like to spread one out because the next couple of poses might be a little hard on the knees. I also like to take a blanket underneath, fold it a couple of levels up to give me a little support underneath. I sit on the very edge of it. We're going to start in what they call butterfly pose. We usually refer to this as bound angle pose in a yang class. And take those heels as far out away from you as you can, where your toes start to separate naturally, or where you stop to, I start to feel a little tension in the back of my legs. So we're going to just slide the hands down. Now in yin, we want to try to break away from engagement of the muscles, pushing to get our face closer to our feet, or the deeper forward fold. What we're looking here is sort of just letting the muscles go and pulling in a little bit deeper to that connective tissue that is cold and a little less malleable and stretchy. And if it's difficult for you here to reach down and you just kind of want to pull on your feet and lean over a little further, you can take your palms up, and that'll usually stop you from pulling too far over. Yin looks to use gravity as a great force here. Most yin postures are seated or lying down. They're held for much longer periods of time, anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes depending on the pose. We're going to stay here for about 3 minutes. And just starting here, start to notice your breath. Maybe if you feel comfortable, you can drop your chin to your chest or look straight down. And just thinking one leg at a time, slowly release the tension in the legs. Softening the muscles. If you can imagine that yin yoga is has a lot in common with traction. So in traction, you seek to sort of put a very slow, long-term pressure, pulling or pushing something, usually pulling, to help lengthen out and keep that connective tissue and fascia more lubricated and mobile. Connective tissue does tend to get stuck. And since the majority of your connective tissue is located in the area between basically your knees and your belly button, a lot of the poses are centered around and focused on your hip area. Just deepen your breath. Just like in a normal class, you want to look into that 3-part breathing, inhaling into the belly, the center of the chest, the collarbones. And since you're forward folding, you want to think about taking that into the back side of the body. So breathing into that space right around the kidneys, the center of the back, the space in between the shoulder blades. And if and when you reach a point where you feel you could go a little bit further, without pushing, you can start to let gravity take you down a little further. And when I mean a little, I mean very small amounts. Just about 30 more seconds here. And pay attention to the sensations that are happening. What you want to look for is maybe a pulling or stretching sensation. If there's a very sharp shooting pain that makes it hard to breathe, or you're struggling to force yourself to hold it, you can always come up out of this to a partial version of it or lift up a little higher. Always adjust where it's most comfortable for you. Now slowly take your hands in between your feet and thighs and walk your hands back up. Take a couple of breaths here. It always seems so easy when you're down at the bottom of the pose, and when you start to lift back up, you notice just how stiff you might have been. So we're going to take deer pose next. You're going to take that right leg over to the right. I usually lift up my blanket, tuck that heel behind. The toes are flat and flexed, keeping that left foot right where it is, one hand right next to your pelvis, the other hand on the outside edge to the left. We just hold this pose for about a minute. So just relax. You want to feel this relaxing. There's a lot of tension in this because when you're rotating outward and inward at the same time, one side is fighting the other. So just take some nice deep breaths. See if you can relax the tension happening in the hip flexors, the outside of the left leg, the inside of the right. I used to tell classes that yin was not for the faint of heart because you hold these poses for quite a bit longer. And when you're holding them and the only thing you have is this static position and your breath, you are alone with all of your thoughts. And sometimes that's very hard. So go ahead, lean over to the left, bring that right foot back in. Get back into that butterfly pose, and you're going to switch sides. Take that left leg over to the left, tuck it underneath there. Remembering that both sides do not always act exactly the same. So if you're expecting that we're not butterflies, we are not symmetrical beings. Asymmetry is a beautiful thing. It may be that this hip or the other hip wasn't able to stay stabilized on the floor as much, and that's where you tuck a little bit more of the blanket underneath so that you have both sit bones on the floor as much as possible. And this is those moments to just look at your body and notice some of the interesting uniqueness about your anatomy, your personal, how your body reacts left to right. Keeping those nice, deep 3-part breaths. You can practice yin yoga first thing in the morning without any warm-up, or last thing at night to just kind of soothe and calm you down. I've done it both ways and I like it both ways. And just 2 more deep breaths. And then start to bring that left leg back in. Maybe wave your butterfly wings here for a moment or two. And then go and bring those knees together. You're going to take your blanket that you were sitting on off to the side because you won't need that here for a few minutes. This pose always brings out a lot of emotional content in most people. So we're going to do frog pose. So you're going to take yourself, bring those feet out to the side, turn the toes out and flex them. Okay, as much as you can. You're going to take the hips in line with the knees, so you have this nice alignment here. Take the ankles in line with the knees. Slide yourself down and come down. So if you had a pillow or a bolster, you could rest your chest on it. I like to just take my hands out in front of me, palms together. I like the blanket because on a normal yoga mat, you get stuck. So we're just going to stay here for a couple of minutes. Once again, if you find after a few breaths, you can take it a little bit further. You can always go there. So the practice today focuses very heavily on the liver and kidney meridians, particularly the kidney meridian, which runs on the inside seam of the leg. Yin is very intertwined with Chinese medicine and the theory of the meridians. Your kidney is thought to be your energizer. So you want a very well-functioning kidney system. You can make minute adjustments, but try to stay as static as you can in these positions. And just 5 more deep breaths here. And I think the hardest thing about is coming out of this pose with a certain amount of gracefulness. So turn your feet so they're pointed. Walk your hands back a little bit further. Press into your elbows and pull the knees together. Bring the toes together and come back into child's pose. Arms out in front, head rested down. And starting to lift up, you're going to walk your hands way over to the right. Right? Take your knees a little bit wider apart. Make sure your big toes are together. You're going to take that left arm and tuck it all the way underneath the right. Come down on the back side of the right shoulder. Excuse me, left shoulder. It's Wednesday and I still have my left and right messed up. You can keep that right hand palm in front of your face or take it stretched out. And once again, if you find you can kind of roll that shoulder down a little bit more, come more onto the back side. And then walk that right hand in, come all the way up. Slide those hands back out to your child's pose. And inhale, lift up. Switch sides. Walk your hands way over to the left. Take that right arm, tuck it underneath the left. Come down on the side of the head and the back of the right shoulder. You can even rest your entire forearm down here in front of you. And keeping that focus on breathing deeply into the back body, the space right above your pelvis where your kidneys are located. And then start to pull that left hand back up. Come all the way back up to center and slide your hands back out to your child's pose. Inhale, come back up to center. Walk your palms all the way in. Lift through your palms and lift those knees together. They've been apart for quite a while. And just sit back here for just a second in Thunderbolt pose, just reorienting your shoulders. Lost my microphone in there. This happens sometimes. And go ahead and start to walk yourself all the way down onto your belly. Come all the way down. So we take Sphinx pose. Sphinx pose in Yin is a little bit different. So walk your feet a little wider, turn your toes in or out, whatever feels most comfortable for you, and kind of shake out the lower body so it's really, really loose. You don't want engagement here. Take your arms a little bit out in front of you, elbows underneath the shoulders but slightly forward. Palms together, outside edge of the fingertips pressing into the floor. You're going to inhale, pull a little bit forward, and then exhale, drop the space in between the shoulders. You can look down at your hands or straight down at the floor. Keeping no engagement in the legs or hips. Once again, taking stock of how this feels left to right. Maybe dropping that space in between the shoulders more, taking the chest forward a little bit more. If you feel this in your lower back and it is very uncomfortable, you can always engage the belly just a little bit and lift it up, or you can take a blanket, tuck it underneath the shoulder space. So I will just show you. You can stay there if you're comfortable where you're at. Use this to change a little bit of the lift so you're not having to work so hard and the floor is not so gravitational pulling. Now you can either stay here in Sphinx pose, or you can start to walk your hands out to the side, turn the fingers out so the thumbs are pointing forward, and walk into what we call seal. And we're just going to hold this for about 30 seconds, so don't worry too much here. Drop the shoulders away from the ears, keep those legs very soft, hips soft, back soft. And slowly bend the elbows and come all the way down. Take your hands out in front, cross the palm over palm, and take your head to the back of your hands. And then press yourself up, come all the way over onto your back. So center yourself up on your blanket so you have lots of space here. Go ahead and walk your feet a little wider. Just softly windshield wiper side to side, just releasing the lower back. One of my favorite poses in Yin is what we're going to do next, which is a very long held twist. So you're going to go ahead and walk your feet in a little bit closer together. Lift your hips a little bit and shift them a little over to the right. Okay, take your arms out to the side, bend the elbows. Okay, you want to have your elbows bent so that back of the hand, back of the arm, back of the elbow is all down on the floor, and that could be closer to your body or further up overhead, whatever you want to do. You're going to bring your knees into your chest and just drop those knees over to the left. You can turn and look over your right elbow or straight up. Just keep that right elbow planted on the floor, right shoulder planted. If your knees don't make it all the way to the floor, that's okay. If that's really uncomfortable for you, once again, you can take that blanket and tuck it underneath the knees or even between the knees to give yourself a little padding in between, or both. You can fold the blanket in between as well. And close your eyes and just take a look at how you're feeling and check in. Apparently my tummy's feeling hungry. So you can hold this twist up to 5 minutes. Generally it's best to start in yin postures with 1 to 2 minutes for each pose, and then slowly integrate them a little bit higher and longer. You'll find that once you get up to the 5-minute markers that it's often very hard to get out of the pose. So it's better to start a little gentler. If you feel gravity taking your knees a little bit closer to the floor on the left, go ahead and let that happen. Remember that every millimeter is a little bit further. And keep allowing that right shoulder to get a little bit heavier. Just take 10 more deep breaths. Then inhaling, bring your chin back to center to look up at the ceiling and slowly start to engage the core and lift those knees back to center. Walk your feet back down the middle and shift your hips a little bit over to the left. Bring the knees in, drop those knees over to the right. Look out over your left elbow. And once again here, remember you're not symmetrical, so go ahead and take your hands closer or further away depending on how that feels good for you. And if you started to feel like a little bit of a tingling in your fingers, you definitely want to take those hands down a little bit lower, maybe straighten them out if that feels better. If in doing this twist your back just popped, mine always does. This is often a really great twist for getting misaligned vertebrae back into place. Just about 5 more deep breaths here. And then turning to look back up at the ceiling, engage the core and come all the way back up to center. Align your hips with the rest of your spine and come back to the middle. Let's take a couple of breaths here. One of the greatest things about yin is that after every single posture, you want to take a few breaths just to feel the sensations that occur right after coming out of it. So our last posture today, I'm going to give you a few different options. Go ahead and bring the knees into the chest. You can make little circles first here to start, to the left and right, maybe rocking side to side. Massage the sacrum, the SI joint, the lower back. And then take the knees wide. You can either grab hold of just the ankles or the calves and just hold the knees like this for the entire time, or you can start here for the first 5 breaths. And then if you want to try something different, go ahead and take your hands to the inside of your feet. Take those feet up into happy baby pose here. Pull the knees down toward the armpits. Here you're going to use some muscles because you're going to use the arms to sort of muscle your knees a little bit closer. If this is way too much for you, always come back to the first where you're holding your ankles or calves. We're just going to take 5 more breaths here. Try to take your tailbone down toward the end of your mat. And then release whatever hold you have. Bring those knees together. Once again, rock side to side, back and forth. Maybe make little circles. Drop your feet flat. And then you can do some pelvic tilts here. So just pressing the lower back into the floor and lifting it away. Sort of a cat-cow motion on the floor. This always feels good at the beginning or the end of practice for me. And then coming back to center, tuck the shoulder blades underneath. You can walk the feet as wide as the mat and drop the knees together, or you can take your heels out to the corners of the mat. So lifting up through the heel, press through the bottom of the heel, and then drop that foot down so everything's in a nice alignment here. Keeping your hands on your belly, we're going to do a little bit of breath work here at the very end. So allow your toes to fall open, close your eyes. Come back to that 3-part breath, breathing first into your belly, so your hands are going to rise a little bit. Center of your chest, collarbones, and then exhaling collarbones, chest, and belly. 3 more 3-part breaths. Smoothing out the breath and lengthening it, inhaling and exhaling. And this time you're going to inhale fully. Exhale fully. And then hold for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Inhale fully. Exhale fully. And count it out, however long you think you can hold that pause out. Just remembering this isn't about who can hold their breath the longest. This is about enhancing that pause at the bottom of the breath that naturally occurs, that silent point. If at any time you feel very breathless, you may have gone 1 second or 1 count too far, or maybe 2, and you can always shorten that up. When you first start using the pausing breath, your pause may be maybe up to 4 or 5. As time goes by, you could probably get to 10 or 12 or 15 for the pause, and it'll still be comfortable, but that's over time. And just take 3 more pausing breaths and lengthening that exhale pause as long as possible. just letting go, releasing that breath. Letting your breath be natural and full. Starting to take a deeper inhale, fill your belly up all the way up to your collarbones. And if you want, you can open your mouth and exhale, sigh. Slowly wiggle your fingers and your toes. And very gently bending one knee at a time, bring the foot flat to the floor. Take a nice deep breath here. And then inhaling, taking your arms all the way up overhead. Stretch the fingertips, lengthening the spine, and exhale, just roll over onto your right side, using your elbow or arm as a rest. And then as you are ready, you can press up with that left hand and come into whatever seated position you like best. You can bring that stack of blanket that you had from before back over so you can sit up on it. Cross your legs, palms up or palms down onto your knees. Roll your shoulders up towards your ears and relax them down. Sit up nice and tall. Exhaling, bring your hands to your heart. Thank you for taking this time to share a little bit of my yin side.